Did you know that the village in Gatlinburg was made from discarded treasures? Let's learn how this iconic shopping plaza was made and what treasures you might find inside. Welcome to Bear Facts, where we explore the Smoky Mountains one bear fact at a time. Wow, that title said it all. I mean, how can you just pass that by without wondering, how can a shopping mall be made with discarded treasures? And how did that even come to happen? Well, in today's video, we'll explore this iconic destination and find out more about it. We'll talk about its history and give you a little bit more information about this truly unique shopping mall. I really had to stop and think about how I wanted to go about this video. I could have started with the shops at the village or about their 4 seasons at the village, and maybe I will do a video someday on these topics. But when I actually started looking into the history of this small mall of just 27 shops, boutiques, and eateries in Gatlinburg, I was surprised to learn that one of the original owners, Jim Girding, owner of the Pancake Pantry and co-owner and developer of the village itself, passed away just this January of 2025. Of course, that led me down a rabbit hole of information that I didn't even know about the place, and my curiosity was piqued. That got me thinking that maybe I could make a video that was less about yet another tourist destination, but rather an exploration into one of the businesses that helped grow and develop the Gatlinburg we know and love today. And it's all started with 2 business owners who wanted to preserve an old history by creating something new. So for those of you who don't know what the village is, let me try to explain it a little. The village might be considered one of the most iconic places you might discover in Gatlinburg in the Smoky Mountains. It's a small mall you can see right from the parkway as you pass through the town. Its address is 634 Parkway, and it's called the Village because, well, it looks like a village. Yes, Oliver, I know I will probably be saying that word a lot, but that's its name, and I will have to wear it out. I'm sorry. The Village is a collection of 27 small shops, boutiques, and eateries that you can walk around. The design and layout of the mall is somewhat intentional, and I say somewhat because I'll explain that later. But how and why it was designed also had more to do with working with the designers had available, and that's the space that you're looking at. The mall was first conceived by 2 local business owners, Jim Girding and Dave Ditch. Jim Girding and his wife June owned the Pancake Pantry. The land ended up costing them $350,000. Not a small chunk of change in the 1960s for sure, but nowadays that seems like a steal. Earlier, I pointed out that the layout of the village might not have been exactly ideal even for these guys, but they had what they had to work with, so that's what they did. If you look at the layout of the land, there's not actually a lot of store frontage that's on the parkway. It's actually a very small section of the entire village that people can access right from the road. So other than the frontage that the restaurant and candy shop stood on, the rest of the land was up behind where their businesses were. And there was a concern that people wouldn't leave the parkway to explore the shops behind their businesses if they decided to move forward with the expansion and create the mall. They actually did a test run to see if they could get enough people to leave the parkway sidewalks to explore their property, and were able to get the footage they wanted to start the buildings. Nowadays, when you enter the village, you almost can't conceive that it wasn't part of the original design and plan. I mean, the way they put in the arch and cut off the rest of Gatlinburg makes you feel like you're being transported into a new world. Well, an old world anyway. An old world style European village to be exact. But the truth was that the property itself was the key factor that helped direct that final design and layout. From what I could find out about the 2 business owners, I would guess that these families really loved to travel and also had a deep appreciation for history because they really put a lot of effort into the details of the village as well as its design and functionality. The mall is designed to replicate an old world European style village. Once you pass the village gates, you will be able to follow a brick walkway that takes visitors up and around side passages and through back alleys. Along the way, you'll see a variety of unique shops and eateries. And everywhere you look are small details that make it more authentic. You'll see the London style phone booth and a lot of like iron decalings and the fountains that make it more authentic. There are no definitive architectural styles. You might see buildings that are like Georgian inspired, Victorian, and even a few Gothic revival elements. But for me, I see more German inspired elements than anything else. But who knows? I'm not an architect and could be very wrong. What I can tell you is the owners were pretty fussy. They had their designer Lee Butler at the Community Tectonics LLC draw up over 7 designs before they settled on the one you see today. The village co-owners were also very involved in the smaller details of the village. If you walk around, you might get a sense this place feels older than it should be. I know that for some people, the late 60s, when the village was built, doesn't seem that old. And in the world of architecture, it really isn't. Yeah, when you look at the slate tiles and brickwork or the wood trims and doorways, things look older. And that's because some of these design elements are older than the actual village itself anyway. Because through their extensive travels, the families collected a hodgepodge of unique architectural pieces from auction houses and other places. The 1960s in Tennessee was a booming time. Interstate infrastructures were pushing through towns and places, and many old houses and mansions were being demolished to make room for progress. If it wasn't for people like the Girdings and the Ditch families, pieces of history would have been sitting in the landfills instead of here in Gatlinburg. An example of this is the bricks that make up the archway as you enter the village. There is a plaque that explains how these bricks were salvaged from a building that was from the 1800s. It is suspected that these bricks were used in one of the oldest buildings in Sevier County from 1842. If you head to the back of the mall, one of the buildings that's currently housing the Master Edition store inside was made from salvaged bricks from the Wick McMahon House and the L&N Hotel in Knoxville when they were being demolished. If you go to the back behind the Master Edition, you'll also notice that there is a bathroom back there, and it's actually fits the theme pretty well. Right in front of the bathroom is the Spice and Tea Exchange, and they also have a unique facade. That whole frontway, the doorway and side panels and arch windows were actually originally part of a home belonging to Robert Hunter of Johnson City, Tennessee, built in 1911. And don't overlook the stained glass windows you can find scattered about the village. Some of these windows were actually made in Italy, which in itself is a feat. If you have any idea how hard it is to transport glass overseas, you would understand that. And there is at least a few different pieces that we know to be actually Italian. The windows at the Honey Pot and the other windows at the Master Edition buildings were both salvage pieces. One of these salvage pieces was from a Presbyterian church that was being torn down in Knoxville. Even the lanterns and many of the fixtures are salvaged from other places and given a new lease on life. One feature that I didn't find no history on was the fountains inside the district. I'm sure that there is someone out there that might know where they came from, but they aren't online, so I couldn't tell you. But they are one of my favorite things in Gatlinburg. I really love the one in the back, especially in the summer when the moss and greenery is, growing up and around the fountain walls. Though not spectacular, there is a charm and sense of age that you feel when you're sitting beside it. Now, don't get so lost in the architecture that you lose sight of the actual businesses themselves. The village is designed to draw you in, but the businesses will help draw out your wallets. There are a variety of different places in and around the village. Each business is unique in appearance and what they have to offer. The businesses are mostly leased by small business owners, and I won't delve into each place, but I'll give you an overview of what you can find here. If your feet are getting tired and you brought the wrong kind of shoes, there are a few places that can get you geared up for walking the busy streets of Gatlinburg. The Hayloft building has two sides. In the back, you'll find the comfort footwear, which makes sure you have comfy shoes for any season. On the other side of the building is the Hayloft, which specializes in Arrett brands and foods. Adjacent to the Hayloft is the Day Hiker, which will help prepare you for places like Mount LeConte. Most of the businesses have a second floor, which are often open to the public. If you're like me and like to explore, you might find more salvaged treasures that are scattered around, built into the architecture. The Day Hiker has a metal staircase that was clearly part of another building and that found a new home in Gatlinburg. If you end up going inside the Good Life shop, you can find all kinds of shirts and other odds and ends. Now, clothing and shoes aren't the only things you'll find in the village. There's also an assortment of food-based operations. Yummy. Yes, I know, Oliver, you're excited now. One of the oldest places, and not just in Gatlinburg, but in all of Sevierville, is actually in the village, and it's the Donut Fryer. As I said, this place is one of the oldest family-operated food places in all of Sevier County, and it specializes in one of the most iconic American snacks, the donut. This donut shop is hard to miss since it's right in the middle of the square behind the big water fountain that sometimes actually has flames coming out of it. The fryer sells fresh, hot, homemade donuts daily, and also they have a variety of different coffees and lattes to keep you caffeinated. Also, if you do want to stop here, try to make sure you stop in earlier in the day. They do get very busy, and some of their popular donuts sell out. One of the great things about the village is that it is owned by a lot of local businesses. So if you want to avoid places like Starbucks, there are two other locally owned coffee shops within the village, and they're really close to the Friars. Both shops are close to one another and might be hard to spot if you're not looking. The Coffee and Company has a coffee pot above their sign, so this one's a little easier to find, and this shop is all about the coffee. While Maddie Mae's Cafe and Creamery is a little more hidden, however, they offer a few more items on their menu. Here you can find a flavored cup of joe or a sandwich to carry you over until dinner. And for those of you who might find tea to be a little better choice, there is the Spice and Tea Exchange. Here you can get unique spices to add to your next home-cooked meal or different kinds of teas. If you're more into the salty treat, stop at the Pop Culture and get popcorn. They have different flavors that can be sweet, salty, or a perfect combination. Also, if your four-legged fur baby is on vacation with you, make sure you stop and grab a treat from Bone Diggity and Bakery. At this boutique, you can get a doggy biscuit or a small treasure to take home for your pets. There is only one real restaurant in the village. It's called the Boudica Celtic Pub, which I think I said right. It's across from Mae's Cafe. If you like Irish foods, this place has an authentic Irish pub fare and does serve beer. The restaurant is a two-story building with a bar on the first floor as you enter and seating on the second floor. Now, even if you don't decide to eat there, it's still worth a check or a peek up to the top floor. There's some other architectural design elements that you might enjoy. Now, maybe Celtic food isn't for you, but you certainly love their art or decor. I would head over to the Celtic Heritage, which is a shop that specializes in all things, well, Celtic. And if you don't know where the line, "there can only be one," comes from, you clearly aren't from my generation, or just pass by the 1980s cult classic, The Highlander. But either way, if you head over to that shop, they have a lot of fun, unique souvenirs. Z Olive is around the alley from Mae's. This shop has a wide assortment of olive oils that will help make your next meal a true masterpiece. Now, if you're like me and not one for cooking, you can also get these olives to dip your bread in or make a salad with. Why bother with cooking? You can just enjoy it the way it is. The village also has other shops that people can find that you might not think about. Misty Mountain Soap Company has a shop up in the back of the village. This place has amazing locally crafted soaps and lotions. There's also a small jewelry shop tucked up there as well, and other amazing little boutiques and shops that you might be able to find the perfect gift that's, one of those things you need to find for a hard to buy for a loved one. There is no doubt that I can go on and on about each shop and talk about things that you can find here, but let's not gloss over the two businesses that started it all, the Pancake Pantry and the Old Smoky Candy Kitchen. The two establishments that greet all guests as they enter the small mall, a pancake house and candy store. Such simple businesses, yet both are still going strong and keep guests fed and delighted. And though both Dave Ditch and now Jim Girding have passed on, they both have left an amazing legacy. A place that draws in hundreds of thousands of visitors a year and provides a sanctuary for weary travelers. The village is not only a place where you can find fun, unique items, get a bite to eat, or even step away from the crazy hustle and bustle in Gatlinburg, but it's also a place that has preserved a piece of history and given new life to these old treasures that might have been lost in time. I hope this video helps you learn more about the Smoky Mountains or helps you plan your next own trip. You're getting an honest review from our personal experiences, but facts and things change. So please keep us in the loop if you learn anything new and want to share your experiences in the comments. Thanks again for visiting us at Fairfax of the Smoky Mountains. Please click that like button and subscribe to our channel.